Welcome to this video on how to turn your essay plan into an essay. My name is Dean Watson. Now that we have our essay plan, it's time to turn it into an essay your mum wants to put on the fridge. It's important that you've seen the previous video on making an essay plan because 1, it makes us feel special, and 2, because simply writing your plan out in full sentences will almost guarantee you'll have an essay that's going to get a pass. If you do only want to pass, you should actually practice doing essay plans and then writing them out in full sentences. It's your best shot at proving this guy wrong. However, if you want to write a merit or excellence level essay and set yourself up for level 2 English, level 3 English, or a job that doesn't involve washing dishes, this video is for you. According to the examiners, a good essay needs to show that you are perceptive. So in an excellence level essay, they're looking for flair, originality, expression, flow, and a bribe. Okay, maybe not a bribe, but maybe a bribe. In this video, we're going to cover 3 techniques to help you write a perceptive essay. Like the tutorial on essay planning, these skills will apply to all of your English essays, written text, visual oral text, and why I hate English so much, I mean unfamiliar text. On to the first skill. To make our explanation simpler, we'll talk about the writer and the reader as if we're studying a book. Really, we just mean the creator of the work and the audience. For a book, it's the writer and the reader. For a movie, you would talk in terms of the director and the audience. And for a song, it would be the composer and the listener. As you may have heard, despite recent advances in technology, books don't write themselves. In actual fact, there is a writer who is intentionally trying to share their thoughts with you, the reader. Don't be afraid, it's perfectly normal. You'll see this coming up in NCEA exam questions more often than you see money coming up in your savings account. Specifically, you'll notice that there are 2 parts to every English exam question. The part that asks you to talk about the writer's intention, and the part that asks you to talk about how it impacted you as the reader. Consider the following written text questions. In this question, you're asked to talk about an idea in the text, one that the writer will have wanted to share with you. So that's the part of the question asking you to talk about the writer's intention. But then you also have to talk about why it was worth learning about, which comes back to what you thought as the reader. That's the part of the question asking for your opinion. This next example asks you to describe at least one challenge faced by a character in the text. That's the part asking you to talk about the writer's intention for a character. And then it asks you to also explain how the way they faced the challenge helped you to understand the character in the text. Again, that's asking you for your interpretation of the text, your opinion. Or in this third example, which is asking you to describe one important friendship, that's the part asking you to talk about a friendship that the writer intended. And then it goes on to say, explain how the friendship helped you to understand one or more characters. That's the part of the question asking for your interpretation. Or, that's right, you guessed it, your opinion. So in order to be perceptive and get good marks, you should mention this in every paragraph of your essay. Think of it as subliminal messaging for your examiner, which will make them give you good marks. You can talk about the writer's intention whenever you want, but the best time is probably during the explain part of each paragraph. So in your explanation, you wouldn't just say, this happened. Instead, you want to say, the writer intended this to happen. And because books are useless without readers, unless they want to collect dust, you would then say how it affected you as the reader. The best time to do this is during the why your response part of the essay. Use sentences that start off like, this showed the reader how, or it helped us relate to. For example, if your friend Jane tells you a story about how her pet dog recently died, and you start to feel sad, you must remember, it was Jane's intention all along to tell you her sad story. So if for some sick twisted reason we were writing a collection of essays about dogs dying and we wanted to structure Jane's story into a paragraph, it might look like this. The statement could be something like, Jane's story about her dog dying was sad. So that's our opinion. Then in the explain part, we could talk about Jane's, the author's, intention. By describing the gory details of her dog's death, Jane intended to make the listener feel sadness beyond any sadness they'd ever felt before. An example of a quote from Jane's story that supports my opinion that her dog dying was sad might be, if this happened to you, how would you feel, you stupid git? And in the your response part, we make sure we say how the story affected us as readers. So we could say, For dog owners, hearing Jane's story for the first time, you can't help but feel sorry and sympathetic for what the stupid git is going through. The take-home message is that everything in your written text was intended by the writer to affect you as the reader, so make sure you say this in your essay. All of this will show the examiner that you have a high level of perception about what's happening underneath what's happening in the book. Tool number 2 is about flow. Consider this. You know how sometimes you're talking to a friend about your upcoming English essay, and out of the blue they'll say something random like, "Did you know wife carrying is an official sport in Finland?" And you're like, where did that come from? We were just talking about essay writing. This is how an examiner feels if you write one seemingly random paragraph after another. We can avoid this problem by turning our sexy paragraphs into even sexier paragraphs. Here, R stands for relate. This means that at the end of our sexy paragraph, we need to write a sentence that relates that paragraph to the next one. One way to do this is by thinking, how do I link statement 1 to statement 2? Going back to the essay plan we made in the first video for an example, we can relate our first paragraph, Harry's friends help him overcome external obstacles, to our second paragraph statement, Harry's friends help him overcome his internal fears. So our relating sentence could be, while Harry's friends helped him overcome external obstacles, they also gave him the courage to overcome his internal fears. So the first half of the relating sentence should refer to the paragraph 1 statement, and the second half of the relating sentence is essentially the same or at least very similar to your paragraph 2 statement. Now note, if your essay has 3 paragraphs, you will only have 2 relate sentences for the entire essay. At the end of paragraph 1, which relates it to paragraph 2, and then one at the end of paragraph 2, which relates it to paragraph 3. Just be warned, when you relate your paragraphs to one another by following this even sexier structure, you will make the examiner reading your essay so excited they'll wet their pants. So your relate sentence increases flow in your essay and in your examiner's pants. If for no other reason than this, it's worth going the extra mile. The third main tool you can use is make your essay more interesting. Give it some flair, some personality, some pizzazz, some Freddie Mercury. For example, think of a successful movie. Not that one. That's better. James Bond is one of the most successful film franchises of all time. But why do people keep watching the movies when all of the stories are basically the same? James Bond goes on a journey, gets with a hot girl, defeats a bad guy, and along the way kills a bunch of people. People watch because it is interesting and entertaining along the way. Bond has personality, pizzazz, and every one of Queen's albums, I assume. In the same way, you want your essay to be really interesting to the examiner, even if they have read essays with a similar overall opinion to yours before. With this in mind, here are 2 tools to make that happen. The first and most important of these is make a good first impression on your examiner. Looking at your essay plan, most people would start the intro with something like, in the book Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, written by J.K. Rowling, the challenge that was faced by yada 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 yawn yawn yawn. This is boring! Think of a more exciting way to express your opinion. Why not say something outlandish like, Harry Potter is nothing without his friends, or Harry Potter would be dead without his friends. Both of these statements fit with our overall opinion, and are much more interesting than what we started with before. Obviously though, avoid things like, yo, in that book about Potter and that stone written by J to the K to the Rowling. That's not going to get you anywhere in English, or in life for that matter. This isn't juvenile prison. Our second tool is to use more descriptive language for our key sentences, namely our overall opinion and our 3 paragraph statements. So let's take a look at those 4 sentences from our essay plan. First, we could rewrite our overall opinion to be something like, Harry Potter's dramatic journey to meet Lord Voldemort in the final room gives the reader a new appreciation of the importance of friendship. As you can see, there is more descriptive language now. Or we could include writer's intention and say something like, J.K. Rowling falls to her knees and begs readers to appreciate the importance of friendship as Harry Potter triumphs over Lord Voldemort. While this sounds like it was written after too many pineapple lumps, the point is, have some fun with it. Don't be boring. We could also do this for the statements in our essay plan. A more descriptive way to write the first sentence could be, the force of friendship lifts Harry over the external obstacles in his life. The way I got to that sentence was by thinking of a more descriptive way of saying Harry's friends, which led me to the force of friendship. A more descriptive way to write the second statement could be, Harry's friends helped him realise he was capable of more than he ever thought possible. To get this sentence, I just thought of another way of saying overcoming internal fears. A more interesting way of saying the third statement might be, while friendship is important, sometimes selfishness is necessary in order to achieve our goals. Once again, I just thought of another way of saying go it alone and came up with selfishness. So as you can see, a lot of good essay writing is just about finding different and more descriptive ways of saying the same rhinoceros. Like all things in life, getting better at this requires practice. A great way to practice is to choose an exam question and write an essay plan. Then try and come up with 3 different ways of writing your overall opinion and each of the paragraph statements. By the time you get to the 3rd draft of your essay plan, if you go back and compare it to your first draft, you'll see how much more interesting your 3rd version is. Here's some incredible advice I just came up with because I'm the internet. Good essay writers always read over their work to check for spelling mistakes. You should always allow some time at the end of your exam, 5 to 10 minutes, to check your spelling, grammar, and even to see if you can come up with more expressive, more interesting ways of saying things. Knowing that you've already finished your essay, that the hard work is done and the pressure is off, you're likely to notice things you didn't in the heat of the moment. It's always a smart move to reread your essay at the end of the exam, while at the same time taking pleasure in the frantic last-minute scribbling of those less organised, miserable souls around you. In summary, to take your essay from an achieved level to an excellence level, we need to remember that examiners are looking for you to be perceptive and show flair, originality, expression, and flow. 3 ways we learnt to do this are: first, talk about what the writer intended and how it made you respond as a reader. In the explain part of each paragraph, you can say what the writer was intending. Then, in the why your response part of each paragraph, you can say how it affected you as the reader. This ensures you answer both parts of the exam question, and it shows that you have great perception of what's going on behind what's happening on the surface of the book. Second, turn sexy paragraphs into even sexier paragraphs by adding a relate sentence that links paragraph 1 to paragraph 2 and paragraph 2 to paragraph 3. This helps your essay flow. Finally, you can make your essay more interesting by A, having a really outlandish or forward-thinking overall opinion, and B, rewriting your statements so they are more descriptive. This helps to show your originality and expression. These are the tools you need to turn your good, convincing essay plan into a perceptive, expressive, and original work of art that belongs in the centre of the family fridge.